Major number 2 of the 2022 PGA Tour season is coming up this week. It is the PGA Championship at Southern Hills Country Club. We're going to break down what you need to know about that course, what you need to know about this year's field, and get you set to hopefully fill out some good lineups over on FanDuel.com. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com. Joined here as always by Brandon Gadula. He is the managing editor, the senior managing editor of numberFire.com. Brandon, major number 2 coming up this week. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I love major weeks. Obviously, great golf, great fields. And then I get to dig in to this prep and just look at all of the world's best golfers and try to split hairs and kind of go, a little bit up the wall, trying to figure out how to pick one golfer over the next. It's, I guess it's a good problem to have, too many good options, but boy, every time I feel like we break one of these down, it's like, sure, it looks like you like Rory this week. I don't have an issue with that, but I'm not going to. Can't play everyone, so
we're gonna play a fight on the first minute of the podcast.
We've had quicker ones.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I didn't even get through the intro a couple times and we were yelling, but anyway, I think it was especially tough with regards to like picking and choosing the mid range this week. Like, my goodness, trying to for our player picks whittle down the entire 9-ish thousand range to 2 guys, impossible. And it's not only because, there are a lot of options, but also, I can nitpick everyone. And I feel more inclined to nitpick at an event like this where I actually can. The problem is it leads to, I can't go this guy because, I could go this guy instead. And you just kind of, work yourself into a tizzy. And so, I might just wind up avoiding the tier entirely because you have a lot of options with a field like this where you can mold the lineup into however you want to make it look. And I find that paralyzing, but also kind of freeing at the same time.
Yeah. I always feel bad whenever I say at the end of a show, hey, you know who we talked about. You're going to know who other people, other shows, other articles are talking about. There's a lot of leverage to be gained in just sort of pivoting, but in a major, there's a lot of credence to it. And I'm seeing some movement just now on one Brooks Koepka. He is 42-1 to win on FanDuel Sportsbook. He was 29-1 over the weekend. If people aren't going to play Brooks, his salary's pretty high on FanDuel. He's I think 11-3, but
did we ever get word on why he withdrew last week? I didn't see one. I looked for it today, but I didn't see anything.
But talk about a pivot option.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're just you get those at every single salary in a major. You don't really get that. Last week we had a few standout plays in the low 10,000 range, but this week it's you got to find reasons not to pick guys.
Yeah.
Whereas some weeks you have to find reasons to pick guys. So, and that low 10,000 range is pretty juicy.
It's pretty juicy, and I think there's a fall off after that, and that might influence how we view things for this week in terms of roster construction and so much more. We'll break down our concrete thoughts on roster construction. We'll let you know golfers we are going to in each salary tier, break down the course, and so much more in just 1 second. But first, a quick reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. We, of course, are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen, you can find us. And while you're there, if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review, not just PGA, but also MLB, UFC, NASCAR podcasts this time of year, NFL back in the fall. So a lot of good stuff, all brought to you if you subscribe right away as it is posted. So hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Also, the PGA back in a big way this weekend, in case you hadn't heard, with a massive daily fantasy contest on FanDuel. This week's PGA Mega Eagle contest includes $400,000 in total prizes, with first place netting $100K. Best of all, it's only $9 to enter. To get yourself a chance at all that cash, go to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app. Eligibility restrictions apply. Go to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app for more details. So let's break down the course now for this week's event. It is Southern Hills Country Club, 7,556 yards and a par 70. Yeah, that's a lot. 7,556 the yardage and a par 70. There are 156 golfers in the field. The top 70 plus ties make the cut of 2 rounds. So it's different cut rules for this week. It's the top 70 plus ties. There is no secondary cut either. It is top 70 plus ties, no matter what, for this week. But it's also 156 golfers. So it's a very difficult field to make the cut in, given how large the field is, given the quality. You know, we still have like all the pomp and circumstance of a major where there are some guys there who are not going to be factors towards the cut, but like it's not easy. It's not easy, Brandon. Come on.
No, look, the PGA professionals. Look, I hope some of them make the cut, but it's maybe more like 130, 140 golfers deep.
That's still a lot. That's still half the field getting cut. That's still a lot.
And it's going to play tough. So you don't have a whole lot of room for error.
Exactly. And speaking of that room for error, it's because of this course. And it's a course that has hosted 7 different majors, but none since 2007. And it's undergone a renovation since then. So we, in theory, kind of have data, but we also don't for this course. So, Brandon, I want to talk to you. When you look at Southern Hills Country Club, what do you see in the data? How are you playing things from a DFS perspective for this week?
So I'm not factoring in the 2007 PGA Championship or the 2001 US Open because I think that this course has changed enough from the research I've done. And by research I've done, it's notes that I've read on other people's research. I want to make that clear. I don't have boots on the ground.
You were not out there like sniffing the grass to see, stuff like that. I don't know why you'd sniff the grass. It might be kind of weird, but it's a good way to get kicked out or banned or get a restraining order or something.
I don't think my allergies would like that either, but
fair enough. Good point.
So you mentioned the length here. It's about 330 yards longer than the average par 70 on the PGA Tour, but it is rating out pretty wide. If you look at things from a fairway acres per yard standpoint, which is a pretty good predictor of just how wide fairways are, obviously. 7.8 on that scale, PGA average about 4.1. So hitting the fairways, it's still going to matter because they're going to do what they can to grow the rough up. But in Oklahoma, mid-May, it's probably not going to be too penal. But what this sort of means is that driving accuracy is not a key stat for me this week. Doesn't mean we don't need some precision, though, because we have pretty small greens, just over 5,000 square feet on average. It's about 85% of the PGA Tour average, usually around 6,000 square feet, and those greens are bent grass. So long course, small greens. What else kind of jumps out? Well, again, I'm not really factoring in the 2007 PGA or the 2001 US Open, but winning scores there, 8 under, 4 under respectively. And I think it's going to play, there are reasons to think it'll play tougher than that in 2022, even with the added distance. With that redesign from Gil Hans in 2018, the key thing that sticks out to me is that Hans said, quote, "You get anywhere near the edge and your ball is going off instead of being funneled back on the green," end quote. So basically what they did was shave down the edges of the greens, not a whole lot of rough around the greens. So if you miss the greens, which again, pretty small, they're falling off one way or the other rather than funneling down toward the pin. So the number one thing for us each and every week is strokes gained approach. That matters to me even more. You got to be able to hit these small greens. If you don't, and even if you do, but if you don't, you got to have good wedge play. So strokes gained around the green, very key stat for me this week. It usually isn't. We're looking at saving par rather than pin hunting and making birdies. So for me, I'm looking at like irons, wedges rather than driver putter this week. That's going to lead me to a little bit of a different subset of golfers for the week, but it's going to be tough. You're going to want some distance off the tee because it's a long course, but you can't be spraying it with the irons, and you got to be able to get up and down. So sorry, Victor Hovland.
I was going to ask.
I don't know. I don't know if it's a Victor Hovland week. I would love it if it is. I went to college at Oklahoma State, so I don't know how that's going to sort of cross, but maybe he never had, maybe he just hits every green and doesn't have to chip, but if he does, could be problematic. So I think and it's going to sound really strange, but I think the key differentiation for me this week is if you're bad around the greens, you're probably just getting crossed off because I can go someplace else, play like a JT or a Cantlay who's good around the greens and get similar ball striking to someone like Victor Hovland. So I think those are the key stats. That's how I'm viewing it this week.
So that's the around the green play. And that's actually pretty in line with how we view majors typically because they're so tough where it's harder to do well if you have a hole in your game. I want to ask you about the greens. You've done a lot of research in putting length. Does that factor in when you look at the size of these greens? They're smaller greens. You've done a lot of research in putt length. Is there any interplay there in terms of what that may mean in terms of the degree to which putting matters if the greens are smaller or no?
I think the only difference would be you'd have fewer longer like lag putts to start things off. But what I typically do is cut out lag putting for the most part anyway.
Yeah.
It's a pretty small portion of your putts. So I'm not really going to change things based on green sizes. Maybe if they're extra large greens, I would actually factor in lag putting a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that I do things, I've found that putting within 15 feet is pretty predictive of your actual strokes gained putting. So just sort of reducing the number of putts from over 15 feet that is even available to these golfers. Plus, I haven't seen, we'll find out what pin sheets look like, but I'm sure they can still, even with small greens, tuck these pins and have some long putts anyway. So that's not really going to factor in for me for this week.
Okay. So the key takeaway here is it's a very long course, but it seems to matter a lot how well you do around the green in terms of mostly avoiding calamity, which is not something we typically look for, but in a major it is. And I think that's especially true for this week. So let's move now and talk about what golfers have done at majors in the past. And we're going to keep this broad because obviously we don't have course data from Southern Hills. We can't do course history. We can look at golfers and what they've done in majors. And obviously we care more about current form because the form you're in right now is always going to be the most relevant. But it also does matter if you can perform well in tough fields, which is what we have here for this week. So you looked at some golfers and looked at their overall performance history in majors. What did you find? Who should we potentially be bumping up a bit based on how they do in spots like this?
Yeah, so I mean, there's no really right way to do this. If you want to look back at majors, you have to figure out how far you're willing to look back. But I just pulled majors since 2017 and looked and saw who's gaining the most strokes in these events. And unsurprisingly, Brooks Koepka is at the top. He gains about 16 shots per event, which is kind of wild. That's about 3 shots better than anyone else. But Colin Morikawa, obviously a standout when it comes to major performance, followed by Scotty Sheffler. Makes sense. Before he won the Masters, lots of good finishes for him at majors. Dustin Johnson always seems to be a bit of a factor still with the majors, and I think that he's someone who could go overlooked pretty easily this week. Jon Rahm, again, like this is kind of what you expect whenever you talk about who's the best at majors. And then we get to Ricky Fowler, whose salary is $8,700. I don't know. You mentioned you looked at Ricky a little bit and did not like what you saw.
I saw his name on the sheet and I just looked out of curiosity. I did not look into him. Let's be very clear about this. I think the terminology here is important.
Well, looked into does not mean looked into in a positive sense necessarily.
I just want to be clear.
Inspected.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the numbers are the numbers. Next up, we have Rory, Xander, Spieth, Hideki. No surprises there. Louis Oosthuizen, Tony Finau, your boy. Kind of another similar situation to Ricky. Any thoughts on Tony Finau?
So like, I looked at the distance of the course, like, okay, cool, like the typical checklist Tony Finau. But then you look in and you're like, oh, our boy's not nuking it anymore. And that's kind of the whole reason you go to Tony Finau is for the bombs. And they haven't really been there. He's also not great around the green, which is kind of concerning in general, but also more specifically for this week. So I looked into it. I actually will say looked into it for this one. Couldn't convince myself though. So, and like, again, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out the mid-range. I couldn't talk myself into Finau despite being in that range from an investigation perspective a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm with you. It's an interesting range. I think Louis is a really interesting name too. Don't know what his health status is going to be, but again, I can keep running down more names, but it's who you expect. Like that's the top 10 to 12. It's the top of the salary field. I will say Justin Thomas is right below Tony Finau, and that might be an indictment on JT in majors, depending on how you view it. But he's been a lot better in majors than I think some people give him credit for. So I just want to throw that out there. And if we look just at PGA performance, Matthew Wolff had a good PGA in his lone start in this sample. Tiger, again, you got to have a lot of caveats there. And then it's Brooks, Morikawa, DJ Scheffler, and Francesco Molinari. So, like, again, you dig back 5 years, you're going to see that Francesco Molinari, Tiger Woods, maybe toward the top of the field. Does that mean anything? Not necessarily.
Yeah. I want to ask you about the flip side of this. There are some golfers, I would say, of interest who do not have great history at majors, specifically like Sam Burns. It's not a bad history because it's a very short history, but it's not encouraging, I would say. He has been to 6 majors, no finish is better than 29th. Missed the cut at Augusta. That was his first time playing Augusta. We talked about how debutantes tend to struggle there. So I think that's pretty forgivable, but that's noteworthy to me. Tyrrell Hatton has a pretty bad history in majors as well. And Hatton is in that mid-range, $9,900. And to me, I actually did view that as being a bit of a drawback for Hatton because it's like, he's been good for a very long time, but even when he's been quote unquote on, there haven't been like these huge showings in majors. He's had a couple of top 10s. Like it's not all bad, but like it was underwhelming. So how do you view guys who haven't really like popped, I would say, the flip side of this, who haven't really shown out in this specific kind of format?
Yeah, it's always an interesting conversation with majors because they're not all the same.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have Augusta for the Masters, and then everything else rotates. In theory, the PGA should be set up similar to past PGAs. The U.S. Open, in theory, should be set up, just to past U.S. Opens, things like that. But it's not always the case. I think what this really does, though, is tells us who doesn't back down. And like, we don't talk about this kind of stuff because we're always looking at data, but like, who can put it together when a major is on the line, facing tough fields, facing very difficult conditions? Who can do it and who can do it consistently? And again, if you go back to the list of names I read off at the top of this segment, it's almost all of the best golfers. And that's why they separate from the rest. So I do factor it in, but at a certain point, you can't say, I need every one of my golfers to have flashed and have consistent success at majors, because once you get out like below 10.5 or so, you don't really have that unless you're digging back into golfers who maybe had major success 10 years ago, 8 years ago, and that's not very relevant for me. So I'm not worried about Sam Burns to that degree. Maybe if it's someone's first, second major, something like that,
sure,
it's a little bit different. But
sure,
for Burns, I think he's seen enough and he's shown me enough to believe that he can kind of get this done. in tougher events.
And I think Burns has also performed in high pressure situations. We can define him more broadly in the sense that he's won events where he's been like, he's been being chased down on Sunday and he's actually converted. And I think that actually does matter for me too. So I think it's worth looking into. Like on Data Golf, when you click on like a player page, you can see major performance history, like all grouped together. I think that's valuable info to have, and I would look at it, but don't go too far with it either.
And well, you talked about the pressure. I mean, Data Golf seems to have an answer for everything. They have a pressure tool, which shows, entering the third round or entering the final round, like how often a golfer was expected to win entering.
Oh man,
how often he should have won based on how he played.
I'm really nervous. Do you have this pulled up right now
for Burns?
No, for people in general. Does it have like a list, or is it like you can look?
It's player by player, but like, so for Sam Burns, he has the 4 wins. He was expected to have 2.82, so he overperformed there. But given how he played, he was expected to have 2.14. So it's just always fun to know like that maybe Sam Burns has a few more wins than he should. That's not to say that's anything against Burns, but it's really interesting to put that theory to the test.
That's what it means. Just stones. That's all it means. Where is this thing, by the way? I want to look this up for people for future slander.
It's datagolf.com/pressure-tool. I'll send you the link here.
Okay. I'm not going to do this right now, but anyway, I'm going to look into this. Yeah,
it's fun.
It's going to make me real sad later though when I look into like some of our favorites and then get sad. So maybe I'll leave the sadness for later on.
Yeah, like with Mac Thoma, maybe a little luck for him. That
no, it's not luck. It's stones. Come on, like it's math. It's basic math. Like if they lose, it's variance. If they win, it's stones. It's never good luck, Brandon. Just remember that. How dare you? Let's talk about current form. Go through some golfers who are golfing well right now. And I'm not really sure why Scotty Sheffler is in this section. I feel I should have audited this before we dove in. So convince me, first of all, Brandon, that Scheffler is in good form because I am skeptical. And then tell me what to do with Scheffler as the co-favorite of Jon Rahm for this week.
Yeah, so Scheffler, very interesting case. I think we just have to lead off with him this week. He had reeled off 4 wins and 6 starts, including that elusive first win. Not only just the first win, but then also the first major. So like he's got some stuff, checked off the list. T18 at the Zurich, not the Zurich gym. Come on with that. T15 at the AT&T Byron Nelson in a tune-up this past week in his beloved Texas. Now, he did not putt well. I was tracking this pretty closely because Scheffler was he wasn't in contention, but he was looking pretty solid. He ranked 69th among golfers who made the cut in strokes gained putting, but was 8th tee to green. His tee to green game is just phenomenal right now, and he just has no holes in his game. He's a good putter. He should regress negatively or regress back toward his mean a little bit in terms of putting based on the data that I use. But again, no real holes, and that's crucial for, I think, what this test is going to be this week. Also, you'll probably hear that he won at this course in 2015 for the Big 12 Individual Championship. It's been redesigned since then, so it's not something that is overly important, but it's also not like this course is just completely unrecognizable. At least I wouldn't think. And then if you've seen any headlines, he shot a 64 in a practice round recently. His caddy was basically raving about him. He played with Ryan Palmer, and apparently Palmer was like 2 or 3 under, and Scheffler basically ran laps around him. So, there. No disrespect to Ryan Palmer, but there are going to be some tougher tests in this field than just Ryan Palmer. But I think that Scotty Sheffler is a standout cash game play. I don't know how popular he will end up being because we do have other big names. I don't know how everyone views Scheffler at this point. So what are your thoughts on Scotty?
Well, I got to find this Big 12 championship now. If I got to grind some film on Scotty, I found the press release before it, but didn't have the results. So I was unsuccessful in my quick Googling to try to find if there were any other fun people in this field. You can look at that. But I think my question for you is like, because like I can't nitpick Scotty Sheffler. Oh, you have the results already. Cool. Okay. I can't like nitpick Scotty Sheffler, but like it's all about how do I view him relative to like John Rahm, Rory, JT, because like I can't say anything negative about Scotty Sheffler even in a major. Like I can't. So I want to ask you, is Scheffler the A1 type guy for this week for you?
From a daily fantasy standpoint, I think so, even though I still have John Rahm as more likely to win. If I'm really digging in and kind of overthinking this, Rahm has more question marks with the around the green play. His putting is a little bit more suspect right now than what we see with Scheffler. So if I'm just picking one to anchor a cash game lineup, it's going to be Scheffler.
Okay. How far are you willing to pivot? Like, I think the pivot set, what I would say, is the top four of Scheffler, Rahm, McIlroy, Thomas. I would probably want to, like, if I'm saying, okay, X guy winds up being popular on Wednesday, I need to pivot. I'd be okay pivoting to any of those guys personally. I think that they're all in that consideration set. I'm comfortable with them. Is there anyone between McIlroy, Thomas, Rahm, and Scheffler you would not use as a pivot if, you know, one of them winds up being chalky?
Rory's lowest for me, so he's going to be the most likely one that I wouldn't use.
Why?
What?
Tell me why. Tell me why. Tell me why.
So he's got a really strange split with his putting, where he's actually really good from within 5 feet and from 10 to 15, but really bad from 5 to 10. And I think that's going to be like a key par save range this week. So that's kind of partly it. But again, I got to rank. Who would you rank last? Go ahead. Let's do this.
I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know.
like, are you? If the question is, would I play Rory? Yes. If the question is, who do I rank last? Who am I least likely to pivot to? It's Rory. That's all.
Okay, let's say that like Rory. Let's say that the other three are all tracking to be 25% on 25% of rosters, which seems fair. Rory's tracking to be 10. Is that enough to incentivize you?
I mean, that's a lot of leverage.
Yeah, is it enough though for you?
Yeah.
Okay, so Rory's number one. I think that Rory, like, it's either JT or Rory will be the guy.
This isn't. You didn't ask me who's the like sharpest pivot. You asked me.
I asked you, would you be willing to pivot, and you said, "Meh, not Rory." And so I took that as slander.
No, I would play Rory. I have no issues with that.
Okay.
I'm least likely to play Rory of the three.
Bet me something on Rory. I don't want to bet him versus one of these guys. Bet me on something. I don't care what it is.
How was that a thing? I
don't know, man. Like, I'm just very upset. Okay, so Rory's top 10 odds are plus 190. That seems short. I don't want to do that.
They're all short this week.
They're all short every week. That's how these markets work, Brandon. I've been thinking about this for a very long time. I'll figure something out. We're going to have a Rory bet of some kind. For right now, though, let's talk about Jordan Spieth. Spieth trending up again. He has a win and a runner-up in his past two events, regular events, I should say. It's led to some reduced betting odds and increased attention here on Spieth at $11,000. The key thing carrying Spieth for both those, and I think this is interesting, is his irons. He gained 6.3 and 4.8 on approach, and that comes after he gained 6.2 at the Valero. It's pushed Spieth up to 55th in approach to past 50 rounds. That may sound bad, but from where Spieth was previously, it's a pretty big increase. Spieth has also been driving well, and the course should suit him because, you know, it's a distance course, so accuracy issues may not matter as much. So I think there are two things that are true this week. I think that A, Spieth's surge is legitimate, and I'm not questioning that, but B, he's probably going to catch a ton of steam because it's Jordan Spieth on a heater entering a major at a very good salary. I think I'm going to assume Spieth's going to be popular. So let's make that assumption. If we assume Spieth is popular, what you doing with him at 11,000?
I will leave him off of my FanDuel lineups and be okay if he does win the PGA and complete his career Grand Slam. But boy, you don't really think about ever saying these words, but Jordan Spieth's putter is kind of bad right now. It's a problem. Over, let me see here. What do I have this set to? From Data Golf's True Strokes Game Query. Over the past 50 rounds, I have. This is let me refresh here. This is still set to the current PGA. All right, I'm vamping. Heath, 22nd, 22nd in true strokes gained tee to green over the past 50 rounds, 104th in this field in putting. His splits from within 5 feet are awful. He showed us that toward the end of the Byron Nelson missed a makeable shorty. His putting from within 15 feet, not particularly good. It sounds weird, but like that's enough for me to go away from Spieth a bit, even though putting's not a super crucial stat for me this week because you need the tee to green. Just putting well, not really going to be enough, but he's going to have to make some of those putts.
Wouldn't the counterpoint be that we know that in the long term, Jordan Spieth is an S tier putter, and you would think that he might regress in that or progress?
Is he?
I don't know.
Is he though? That's kind of the thing. Like Jordan Spieth is a great lag putter, best on tour. If I'm not looking at stat, I don't know what the stats would say, but he puts it to within like 3 feet from anywhere. Not everyone can do that, but the putting that actually is most predictive, it's where he struggles. If you look back at his career, his best years putting are whenever he's actually good from within 10 feet. He's not good from that range right now. He's focusing on his swing. He's got that backswing, I'm just.
Are you going to try to illustrate this again with your hands? Because it didn't go well last time.
No, because I went the wrong way.
Yeah, I know. The tape don't lie. Ball don't lie.
But no, the pre-shot routine, it's clear that he's working on the ball striking, and he's phenomenal with the irons right now, but you just give me Cantlay instead.
So Cantlay over Spieth without considering roster rate.
Yeah.
What about Xander versus Spieth without considering roster rate?
Very close. If I'm playing a cash game, it's going to be Xander. If I'm playing a tournament, I would be okay taking the upside with Spieth.
Okay. Hideki.
I think it's Hideki.
Yeah. That's more so because I like Hideki than disliking Spieth for me.
Yeah, I'm nitpicking Spieth here because I have to. Okay. If I say like I can overlook that, then I still got to narrow it down from there. Okay. And I understand anyone who's really.
I think it'll be moot because I think he's going to be very popular, so I don't think you'll have to worry about it.
Right, but like, why would I like Hideki and not Spieth? Well, I trust Hideki's long-term tee to green performance more than Spieth's. Mm-hmm. And if they're both not putting well, like, give me the better ball striker. And at its peak long term, that's still Hideki.
Yeah, and with Hideki, like we talked about around the green play, I think that sometimes around the green play gets lumped in with putting as like short game overall, but he's actually good around the green. Yeah. So don't penalize him improperly for his bad putting. Don't double penalize him for that. So let's talk about Shane Lowry. He is within that pivot zone of Spieth because Spieth is 11,000. Shane Lowry is 10-7. Lowry has shown the stones previously, winning a major. He's trending back up, or at least has been recently. He's 10-7. What do you say with Lowry right now?
Yeah, former major winner with that 2019 Open Championship. And I think this week should play kind of roughly like an Open where you got to hit your irons and your wedges well, like get up and down.
It's also going to be windy as butt, and that might be an overlap as well.
And you're going to get like balls rolling off of greens. Like, it's going to be an ugly test of golf. And I think that that's something that puts me on Shane Lowry. But we've seen him finish well recently, third at the Masters and the RBC Heritage. He's got 5 top 15s in his past 6 individual starts, and all in the 5 stroke play events, top 15 in all of those. Data Golf ranks Lowry over everyone's past 20 rounds, second in true strokes gained, trailing only Scotty Sheffler. They have Scheffler at a plus 3.26, which is crazy. But Lowry's at a plus 2.89. And then up third is your boy Rory McIlroy at 2.37. So, like, Lowry's been phenomenal lately. His salary's reasonable. It's not low 10,000s, but if you want to kind of fade the top, say we're going to get a little bit of an unorthodox winner, like a Hideki, a Xander, a Lowry, and you go a little bit more balanced, like you can load up on a pretty strong lineup within this range. And for me, Lowry is a key part of that.
So if you go Xander, Hideki, Lowry, your average left is $9,200. And then let's go Cameron Young.
Yeah.
He's 82. You're back up to 97. That's a stupid lineup. I think that my takeaway, because I like Lowry too, I should make that clear. I like Lowry a lot. The more, so like I was talking about with digging into Fenow and Fowler, those not good. The more I dig into Lowry, the more I think I got to use him. But I also think that about Xander. I think that about Hideki. And that to me says, I think it to an extent with Zalatoris. I'm frightened to death of the putter. We talked about the putter being an issue last week, and it was. But I think he's still kind of like in that realm. So I think that my takeaway is I want one of those golfers in this high 10,000 range and I'm not using the word literally incorrectly here. I want one of them in literally every lineup, because doing so allows me to increase my exposure to this range. And I want to make sure I have high exposure to this range in general. Like that's like a NASCAR thing where like, okay, I need to identify the proper lap leaders. Let me just have a very top heavy line to give myself more darts. I want more darts. And I think that means being in this range a lot, whatever the route may be to getting there. I think that's my takeaway here, because Lowry's great, like Xander, like Hideki, like Zalatoris to a lesser extent. But like, I think this range is really, really, really good, even for a field that's loaded with good ranges.
Yeah. And as much as we can talk, Cameron Young is the exception here, but we're not going to, I can feel pretty confident with any major and say we're not going to get a long shot winner.
Go
ahead.
How do you define long shot?
Like 80 or 100 to 1 plus.
Taylor Gooch is 100 to 1. Guaranteed winner. Gooch bomb. Gooch baby.
So, and again, if you take the savings on a value play and he finishes top 15 and so that you can roster Scotty Sheffler and he wins, like that's a trade-off that works out. But I'm saying if you're assuming that one of the top, whatever, like the tier A of, in the betting market, those guys don't win, and it's that sort of second tier, you can really go balanced. And that's going to be sort of a personal preference and a lineup to lineup preference, because you can go both ways, but maybe really think through your lineups and make sure you're not targeting lineups that don't really correlate very well.
I will say too, you can also be in this range twice, even if you use a Scheffler, Rahm, Rory, or JT. It does make things a little bit top heavy because you're down below 9,000 for your average per golfer. But I'll do that in some builds because I think that it's worth it for this week.
I don't mind the 8,000 range too much. And there's a minimum salary golfer that I can touch on later. But
who is it?
Oliver Becker.
Oh.
Bekker.
Okay, I found him. I see the data golf stuff now. Okay. Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about him. We'll talk about him later on. For now, let's talk about Keegan Bradley. It's time, Brandon. It is time. We've come full circle on the heat check. Keegan back on the menu. We know Keegan's issues. They're very real, but he's overcoming those issues right now and churning out some really good finishes. Keegan has finished top 10 in 4 of his past 6 events. That includes a 5th at the Players, but he's also been top 10 each of his past 3. Keegan's getting there in a variety of fashions. At the Wells Fargo, Keegan, MF, and Bradley gained almost 10 strokes putting. Very sustainable, very real. But if you are skeptical for some reason of Keegan being a great putter, he did gain 4 in approach at the Valero and at the Players. He gained 4.5 plus off the tee at the Players and the Wells Fargo. And the around the green play for Keegan has been really steady recently. Finally, Bentgrass is Keegan's best surface by a pretty wide margin. So Keegan is one of those guys whose major history is pure trash recently. He's missed the cut at 5 of the past 6 majors he has played. He was 17th last year at the PGA Championship, but it seems like the golf for Keegan is trending back up. So are you buying into this surge for Keegan Bradley at $9,200?
I don't mind it.
Yeah.
The expected putting data that I use has him as basically a 0 in terms of expected putting.
I will
and if
take it all day.
Yeah. That could honestly be enough if the tee to green game is as good as it can be. If there is a chance of a little bit of I won't call it a spike, maybe a little bit of a bump from a 1 week sample for Keegan with a putter, like that definitely works. Is he my favorite value play? No. Do I think I'll be in this range a lot? Maybe. Depends on how far down into the 8,000 range I'm willing to go.
Yeah.
But Keegan's a lot more on the radar than he was a few weeks ago.
Firmly agree. And I think that he will be in my rotation for sure down there. I think I'm on board with you where I'm not convinced he'll be like my focal point down there, but I'll be there for sure. So let's talk about Matt Kutcher. He's $8,600. We're looking for some guys to help us jam in more studs. Kutcher's 86. The form has been rounding up. He's not a course fit, I don't think. Maybe you can talk me into him being one, but what do you see with Kutcher here at 86?
So yeah, usually we talk about guys with recent form that we like and use that as an excuse to justify playing them. Sometimes we talk about golfers who might be doing well, but we're not necessarily convinced. This is a little bit more of the latter for me. I have mentioned Kutcher a few times in recent form lately, and he just finished 12th at the AT&T Byron Nelson. He ranked 17th in strokes gained tee to green among the cut makers. He now has 4 top 20 results in his past 5 starts and is coming in at that value salary of $8,600. But I don't love the course fit for him. It's long and it's going to be demanding. I don't know that he has the game for modern majors, and he's actually missed 7 straight major cuts. So for me, this is a little bit more of a cautionary tale of just because you see some good finishes next to Kutcher's name, the name Matt Kutcher. It's a good salary. Like I'm not going to get there. I think that there's more upside and that there's not as much safety with Kutcher as it might feel like. So this is, again, one of those cautionary situations where I'm not in on Kutcher, and I'm kind of just pointing out that there's more to recent form than just finishing positions.
So if FanDuel Sportsbook, if I call up John Sheeran right now, which I'm not going to, he's very busy. If I were to call him up right now and be like, hey, offer me a betting market on the odds that Matt Kutcher gains strokes off the tee, where would you set that line?
I don't know. That's too hard to answer on the fly. Plus, I can't do math in my head.
I think it'd be like plus 450 odds that he gains strokes off the tee. And that's like,
I mean, I could look up. Well, I don't actually have those numbers, but I should probably start.
I mean, I can see what he's done recently, but this isn't like bad events. But I'm also like frightened of like hanging a bad number and getting hammered at the Book of Jim. So,
oh wait, okay. So, Fantasy National has percentage of rounds with strokes gained in a certain category. He's gained off the tee in 46% of his past 50 rounds.
Okay. I don't think it's going to happen this week. I know that this is entirely hypocritical because I'm going to talk about Taylor Gooch later on, and Gooch is like also probably not going to gain off the tee, but he's not going to gain in a different way because he actually like he has some distance, Gooch does, and so like I feel like the odds that he gains are higher than Kutcher's, and like the rest of his game is pretty good, and I can't like justify using a spot on the guy who I know is going to lose in that category. Like that makes it tough for me. So you mentioned you like the 8,000 range. I do too. I actually think it's a pretty good one for this week. Kutcher will not be part of that list. One guy who will, though, is Cameron Young. Let's talk about him. He's $8,200, very undersalaried. And Young has two key things going for him right now. He is super long off the tee, and he is converting beyond just the driver. And that makes him super interesting here at a very low salary. Young has finished top 3 in each of his past 2 events. He was runner-up at the Wells Fargo, third at the RBC Heritage. A lot of that is due to the driving, but he's also getting at least 2.5 in approach in 5 of his past 8 events, the 8 measured events, I should say. In that 8-event stretch, his only 2 finishes worse than 26th were both missed cuts. The issues that the 2 missed cuts were against tough fields, the Players and the Masters. And this is obviously a very tough field too, but I'm still really intrigued by Young, who is young. He's 25. So we talk about how it's easier to buy into gains from golfers when they're younger. Young is young. So he's 82. I'm in, Brandon. Where are you at in Cameron Young this week?
I love him. We won't be alone in that. But at the salary, I think it's still worth it. And while, anyone listening, you're listening to the Heat Check PGA Championship podcast. You're going to know
by numberFire.
You're going to know a thing or two about Cameron Young by now. But if we're being realistic, Cameron Young is not going to be in top 3 in roster rate this week. He'll be he'll be substantially more popular than other value plays, but he's also pretty drastically undersalaried. He should probably be closer to like 92 than 82. So I don't really have any issues with that. And if you want distance, he has it. Speaking of that distance number that you were talking about with Gooch, like I don't talk about this because it's really complicated to like use these numbers, but I use Z-scores for all of my stats. I just cite percentile ranks because it's very easy to discuss. But Cameron Young's Z-score in distance, which is a standard deviation above average in this field, he's a 2.24, which ranks him 6th in the field. Taylor Gooch is a 0.19, so Taylor Gooch might rank not that great, but he's still a plus.
Okay.
And then Kutcher, let me scroll the whole way to the bottom here. He's a minus 1.87. So like with distance in particular, I think that rankings can be misleading because you'll rank 70th in distance, but you might be
the
5
gap
yards
from
shorter.
you to 50th is minimal.
Yeah. So like, again, it's hard to discuss these scores in like a very natural way, but Cameron Young dominates there.
Well. You handled it well.
Cameron Young. No. I'm saying if I used it like all the time, like, oh yeah, Cameron Young's 2.2 in distance and Taylor Gooch is a 0.19. Like,
I think our listeners might actually be okay with that. I have a lot of faith. That's
true. No. Our listeners, for sure.
Exactly. We're not trying to broaden the scope of this podcast. We don't want more listeners. Like we like our people we got, I'm
honestly surprised people listen to this, but
yeah, well, it happens.
But yeah, Cam Young, love him.
I'm not going to put you on the spot. I'm guessing you don't have this in front of you, but like if you think back to the Masters where Rafa Cabrera-Bello was like either minimum or $7,700, his roster rate did not exceed 20%. I don't think, correct?
It was about like 18 to 20, I think.
Correct. And like Young's not going to be that high. I think max 15, right? 15%?
Probably. Somewhere around
That's
there.
fine. Yeah. I can do that. Like I have no objections to that when a guy is undersalaried. Sometimes chalk is chalk for a reason. I'll pivot elsewhere where I have like legitimate alternatives in that range. I don't think I have some alternatives, but like not like I want to be different without being dumb. And I think ignoring Cameron Young is dumb based on everything we've got right now.
Ignoring him entirely is pretty silly. I have him, and I use, this isn't just how I rank golfers and leave it at that, but in my stats only model, he's 15th in this field.
Yeah. I like it. Okay. Let's take a look at what the bookmakers are saying for this week. We got John Rahm and Scotty Sheffler at the top. They are co-favorites at FanDuel Sportsbook. They are both 12-1. Rory McIlroy, who Brandon hates, is 15-1, with Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas 16-1. Colin Morikawa is 18-1. Patrick Cantlay and Dustin Johnson 19-1. Cam Smith is 20-1. We have not said his name yet. That's weird. Anyway, we jump down to Victor Hovland, who's 24-1. Xander Schofley 26-1. Shane Lowry 29-1. Hideki Matsuyama and Will Zalatoris 30-1. Joaquin Niemann rounds at the top group. He is 31-1. So let's have that roster construction discussion now. We talked in passing about how, at least I want to be in that second tier a lot, the high 10,000 range a lot. When you are building a quote unquote default build for a tournament this week, Brandon, how are you doing so?
Probably like a modified balance where I have 2 golfers in like the 8,000 range, and then I just try to go for winners from there. So I think I'm going to be a little bit scarce on the 9,000 range overall. Embrace a little bit more volatility with the 8,000 range, because it is going to be tough to make the cut anyway. And that's not to say that all the golfers in the 8,000 range have the same cut odds as the golfers in the 9,000 range, but there is a drop off to me in this field, and it probably exists somewhere around maybe 10-2 with Niemann.
Yes, that's exactly where I put it.
I want to put like Max Homa and Corey Connors in that, but those 2 guys specifically have a little bit more question marks than a Niemann. So, Abe Answer, Tommy Fleetwood, these guys aren't doing enough for me to roster them over maybe like a Russell Henley. So,
yep. And I think that exactly where you put it is where I'd put it with Niemann, because Burns is 10-4, very okay with him. Niemann's 10-2. After Niemann, Sungjae Im, not sure if he'll be able to make it. Sounds like, yeah, he would. Okay, so yeah, he's officially out now. Tiger at 10,000. I'm not personally, like, I'll root for it, but I'm not going to use him, I don't think. Actually, are you using Tiger this week? I should ask.
No. Yeah. Reports are that he looks stronger. Reports are also from a certain Twitter account that may or may not be associated with Patrick Reed, is that he's getting inside information and then it's a sham. But Patrick Reed also.
Wait. What? Can you explain the backstory on that last? I know the burner account thing.
Use Golf Facts, yeah.
Yeah, but what
Use
about...
Golf Facts was not particularly happy that Tiger was getting some practice rounds in at Southern Hills. But Patrick Reed did get some practice rounds in at Southern Hills, according to other reports. So I'm just saying, I'm just reporting. Again, my boots weren't on the ground. I'm just reporting what I've.
I feel like next year we need to pay for you to go there specifically to sniff the grass and tell us, sniff the grass sounds like a euphemism, by the way. I should probably stop saying that specific phrase. But like, we're going to send you there to give us direct reports on whether Patrick Reed is toggling between Twitter accounts on his phone, and if what Tiger looks like in his practice rounds. I need this content. So
just let me wait till a few more years till the PGA is at Arana Mink, so I don't have to go as far.
Where is that?
It's like Philly, basically.
That's still a long ways. That's across state. It's a
big state.
Yeah, it's a big state. I'm well aware and very disgruntled at how big Pennsylvania is. Yeah, I think there's a big drop off after Niemann, which is why I would say so I talked about how I want 1 golfer in that high 10,000 range. I want 3 of Niemann or higher in every lineup. Yeah. I think that's what I would say as well. Are you okay with that parameter?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, we have Cam Young. There's not like a free space because that definitely doesn't exist in this volatile week. Yeah. But Sebastian Munoz, Alex Noren. We got some names down in the 8,000 range that I think can do some damage. So
I forgot to have you victory lap about Munoz. I know he didn't win, but like he golfed really well. I should have had you do that. Sorry about that. First round winner, that counts, right? Yeah. Brandon was on him last week. He was a player pick. Hashtag follow Brandon Gadula. That wouldn't actually work as a hashtag, but let's disregard that. Anyway, which golfers' odds have shifted most notably the past couple of days?
All right, so we'll start with the shortening odds. This is basically over the weekend and then into Monday afternoon. But Jordan Spieth, unsurprisingly, 22-16 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Patrick Cantlay, 22-19. Love Cantlay this week. Xander, just love him all the time, except last week. But he actually had a great Sunday, 61, I think. So he went from 29-26. Shane Lowry, love him this week. So all the guys I like this week going, shortening. 33-29. Hideki, 33-30. Joaquin Niemann, 42-31. Love that for Niemann. Max Homa, Tony Finau, 65-50. Jason Day, 65-55. your boy Keegan Bradley 90 to 65, and then Billy Horschel 120 to 80.
I like to think that's heat check money coming in on Keegan. Just, I can lie to
Yes.
myself and say that that's what's happening. Does it worry you at all the people we're on are all the ones who are getting attention from people who are investing money in the market?
I mean, it's reassuring.
Yeah.
Always. And it's only whenever we see like overly substantial popularity projections that we need to worry, and we almost never get that at majors.
And we can't get that on
flat.
everyone. So I think that's okay. Which golfers have lengthened in this time?
Scotty Sheffler was 10, or I guess 11. I know for sure. I don't know.
Maybe I should call John Shear to make sure he's okay. Begging for action on Scotty Sheffler. That seems
well, I know he was 11. I don't know if he was ever 10, but he was 11 at least and moved to 12.
He was 10 when I pulled Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Colin Morikawa, 16 to 18. I think he's fascinating this week because I'm worried about the wedge play. Just kind of if I'm nitpicking.
Also not really a bomber. So that could be not that's a nitpick thing more so than it's like a disqualification thing, like the around the green play is.
Yeah. Victor Hovland, DJ, 16 to 19. Victor Hovland, 22 to 24. Brooks Koepka, 29 to 42. So that's noteworthy. And then Bryson De Chambeau is in the field, posting some ridiculous, I guess I shouldn't say TrackMan because I think he uses like some force. So, I don't know what his monitor is of choice, which I'm sure makes them happy that I don't know that. But Bryson from 65 to 95, he was wailing on driver in some videos that I saw. I need to see a little bit more than that, but I mean, I guess you could do worse than like throwing like $1 or $2 on Bryson, see what happens there, but
I'm good.
He also doesn't have the wedge play necessarily anyway. So
did Brooks withdraw to dye his hair back? Because if he did that, I could buy into that. I'm fully in on narratives now, which is just a hair narrative. Alex Albon dyed his hair red in Formula 1.
Is this a NASCAR thing?
No, it's Formula 1. Way cool. Just kidding. The narrative. He dyed his hair red.
Things.
Yeah, and he's finished top 10 like each of the past 2 races. So like with a poop car. So I'm big into narratives. If Brooks dyed his hair to be whatever that atrocity was previous, not be whatever it was previously, I could be more into him then. I will not be on Bryson. But like I could be more into Brooks if he's dyeing his hair. Also, people are fading the DJ wedding narrative, which seems like we got the narrative, we got the narrative, or the narrative and the wedding narrative paired. They'd be able to stack these. DJ, Brooks, all in.
Well, then how do we handle Victor Hovland, like going to Oklahoma State narrative?
I mean, am I using Ricky too? Not really.
Yeah, I was gonna say Ricky.
I don't want to use Ricky. I'll use Ricky in a Sunday only lineup wearing the Oklahoma State orange or burnt orange, whatever. When he's wearing that color in the same state, I think. Geography. Maybe I'll do it then. So like a Sunday only lineup, you can stack Hovland and Ricky, but like not for a full event.
Oh, Taylor Gooch, another Oklahoma State guy.
Oh
Noren.
Okay.
Wolff. You can have almost a whole Oklahoma State.
Gooch baby. Ricky.
Honestly,
Hovland.
You could do worse.
You said Noren, right?
Yeah, Noren.
I've got 4. I need 2 more.
Did you get Wolff?
Oh, fine. Okay. I've got 5. We'll figure this out the rest later. Which lower salary golfers have odds stand out to you?
Well, the big one is Cameron Young at 65 to 1. He's 8,200. Then we got a slew at 100 to 1 with Davis Riley, Alex Noren, Seamus Power, Cameron Champ, Russell Henley, Gary Woodland, Sergio Garcia, Justin Rose. I like Henley there. I like Power. I like Noren. I could see the case for Cam Champ. Some people are kind of expecting this to play a little bit like Augusta, which I could kind of see. Distance, maybe not the most penal rough. Bent grass greens, Cameron Champ does fantastically well at Augusta. Really good putter from within 15 feet as well. And then at 120 to 1, we have KH Lee, back-to-back AT&T Byron Nelson winner. Impossible not to root for KH Lee. Sebastian Munoz, Eric Van Rooyen, Christian Bezadenhout, Ricky Fowler, Harold Varner III, and Maverick McNeely. Your boy, McNeely. Those guys are all 120 to 1.
Is it a Mav week or no?
Honestly, that might be one where I need to look like more at his major history. Like at a certain point, it matters. Like I'm just splitting hairs a little bit. No,
Yeah.
missed all 4 cuts at majors.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's 26. Like,
Yeah.
cut him some slack, Jim. Gosh.
Also, he's not in the field, but Charles Howell III, an OSU alum. I'm saying OSU intentionally to make the Ohio State people mad, although it'd be TOSU because of the Ohio State, I guess. So maybe they won't even care. Anyway, there's a person named Ab Justice, which sounds like Donald Max Ab Justice. I want to know more about this guy. He died in 2013, so I can't find out too much more, but I want to find out who this guy is. So the Oklahoma State stack lineup is short, but I think you can make that work either way. Okay, weather for this week sucks. There's a lot of wind. Wind speeds on Thursday will start off around 12 miles per hour. They will steadily rise during the day and peak at around 19 miles per hour. They're going to sit there from 1 p.m. until the end of the round. So from whatever time the first tee time is until 1, you'll get a little bit less wind. From 1 p.m. on, it's going to be bad. On Friday, we get the reverse, where wind speeds will start around 19 miles per hour, then tail off in the late afternoon. The problem is it's going to tail off really, really late. So it'll be like kind of at the end of each guy's round. That late wave might not get much of a break, but it could be a tiny bit. So I think if you're going to bump up anybody, bump up those teeing off early Thursday because they will play in lower aggregate wind speeds. But more importantly, I'm not opposed to considering wind splits. You said looking at like Shane Lowry because like it may play a bit like an Open Championship. It might be because of wind, honestly, in part. So I actually think wind splits are in play. They're on the table for this week, and then bumping up guys with earlier tee times on Thursday. Wind does carry into the weekend. So wind will be a factor for sure this week. I'm not thinking like the players type stuff, but it will be a factor for sure. And I would at least be open to considering it here. Let's dive in now to our... Go ahead. What?
I think Lowry's not actually that good in the wind. He's all right.
He won the Open. Therefore, that's like the...
Yeah, but it's one of those like...
I don't care if there was no wind that
in the
year.
Wind. I like Daniel Berger. Okay.
I like Burns and Neiman more.
Yeah. I mean, I think Berger, his win odds make him a better bet than a FanDuel play.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Okay, let's go tier by tier now and break down our top options for the PGA Championship over on FanDuel. Brandon, in the upper tier, where are you going for this week?
I got nothing against Scheffler or Rahm. If I'm picking one, I'm probably going Scheffler, but my favorite tournament play at the top is going to be Justin Thomas. I think people are annoyed with him in majors, which I kind of get, but it's a little bit overstated as well, and he does have a major win in his career. And if you look at spike weeks in tee to green play when adjusted for field strength, which I do now, he has gained an 80th percentile mark in almost 70% of his events over the past year. It's easily the best number in the field. If you account for putting, give it some weight, about 70-30 or exactly 70-30. In my spreadsheet, he is trailing only, and this will trigger Jim, trails only Rory in that stat in my adjusted spike week stats. So, hey, what are you going to do?
I'm going to use Rory.
And even if you remove the off the tee numbers from JT, he is 96th percentile in adjusted strokes fairway through green. That includes putting. So if you're looking for irons and wedges, which I am, I don't know how you go against JT this week. You wouldn't go against JT. You would just go for Rory or for Scheffler in a particular lineup. But boy, I got nothing against JT this week, and he's going to be my main win pick for this week.
do I just have to use Rory in every lineup now, like out of defiance?
You can.
I think I will. I'm not going to. I would say for a cash game, I agree with you. I'd go Scheffler. Just there's no reason not to at this point. But
Wait. JT now leads after last week in my spike week stat.
Where's Rory?
Third.
What? Who passed him besides JT?
Rom is back in there with updated data.
Boo. Okay. Let's talk about Rory. We talked about him a lot going into the Masters. He finished second there, so obviously very good. And I've seen nothing to convince me I should back off now. And the key thing about Rory is we had talked about how he was doing well in everywhere except his approach. And if he could get the irons back, he'd be back to like peak Rory. He gained 4.7 on approach at the Wells Fargo, the one event he has played since the Masters. That is his best mark on approach since the WGC St. Jude in August. Now that's a negative because other guys are gaining more than 4.7. So keep that in mind. But the short game has stayed good. That's a key for Rory. He can launch it off the tee. He ranks third in distance gained the past 50 rounds. So if Rory puts everything together, his upside is just as high as everybody else in the field. Mentioned the chipping is pretty good for Rory. It is better than, or at least currently better than what Rahm's been doing recently. That's been kind of his one like key downside. So I'm going to use Rory in tournaments. If I get the read that Rory will be more popular than I assume he's going to be, then someone else won't be. And I'll be okay pivoting them. I would say the top four to me, all in play as pivots, but I just assume Rory will not be very popular, and I'm okay riding him for sure. Have you walked back your Rory hatred yet?
It's never been hatred, and just happened to rank him fourth out of a phenomenal.
Weird.
And which you have not ranked someone fourth yet in that group, by the way.
Let's move on to our other high salary guys. Who else do you like up here?
I could go Cantlay or Sam Burns. What do you think? I'll talk Cantlay because
I will give you the option to put Burns in the mid range because I'm using Neiman there. So if you want to talk Burns in the mid range, I'll allow it because of the way the rosters are being built this week.
I actually have him in the mid range in my helper on numberFire, so that works anyway. But
wow.
So I'll talk Cantlay.
I didn't read your helper, by the way, yet. So this is just us being on the same page as we always are.
Yeah. So for me, Cantlay is probably someone who will get a little bit overlooked. We have Spieth. Stealing headlines, needs that PGA to get the Grand Slam, but go ahead and point me to something that Patrick Cantlay does poorly. You can't do it. He has major ready statistics in every single category. 97th percentile bent grass putter, 99th percentile golfer in adjusted strokes gained fairway through green. He's a great scrambler, gets out of trouble, saves par. 17 of 20 made cuts in majors with 8 top 25s. Like, it's kind of a no-brainer play. Very safe. Not going to blow anyone away by picking Patrick Cantlay, but I think he's a great play this week.
So I like Cantlay too. My question for you is, do you worry about the lack of upside he's had in majors? Because Cantlay's been like in amazing form for a pretty long time now, and I've used him a lot in majors. But he's not finished better than 15th since the 2019 PGA Championship. He's only had 2 top 10s in his life in a major. Does that worry you at all, or no?
No, that's basically only a thing until it's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of those. He's not been bad at majors. 8 top 25s. If you look at the spike week numbers, he's actually a lot better than you would think. If you look at round-to-round variance, he's a lot better than you would think. And I don't want to misquote. I know what my data says, but this one's something that everyone can look at. Over the past 12 months, Cantlay still ranks second in Data Golf's true strokes gained. Like, it's trailing Rahm, not Scheffler, because, again, if you use long-term form, it's still Rahm, Cantlay, and then the rest of the field. There's nothing wrong with Cantlay at 11-2. Not at all.
I agree with you. I just wanted to ask the question because I thought
no, it's a fair question, but
yeah, no, I agree with you. One guy whose major history I would not question is Xander Schofley. He's actually been very good.
How many wins does he have?
He was one I was scared to look up on your pressure thing over on Data Golf. I'm going to leave that for a darker time. But it feels like Xander fatigue is kind of there, kind of similar to what you were discussing with Cantlay, which may allow him to go overlooked here at 10-9, especially because he is $100 lower than Spieth, and Spieth is probably going to get a lot of steam. We want well-rounded golfers this week, and Xander has always been that. Despite a bit of a lull he had at one point, he's still 11th in the approach the past 50 rounds. He's also a very good bentgrass putter. His form has come around the past couple weeks. He and Cantlay teamed up at the Zurich. They had a top 5 at the Byron Nelson as well. Xander gets me access to a guy with winning upside. I think you can argue if you want, Brandon, the big Xander hater, at 10-9. And that's what I need in a major. So of the guys in that tier, it's a very good tier. I would probably go Xander 1. It would be a hard thought through scenario though with him versus Hideki, and Hideki be the other guy to consider pretty strongly for the top spot in that range. Who would you put top 2 from, let's say, Cantlay through Zalatoris?
Okay, Cantlay through Zalatoris, top 2.
Yeah.
Cantlay Xander, but Lowry's right below that.
So you put Lowry above Hideki?
I think so.
You want to do a bet?
No.
Why?
Because it's very close.
Rude. Okay, let's drop down to the mid-range. Who do you have there?
Also, Xander should have, given how he played, 5.06 wins during his stretch of 5 wins. So,
okay.
Yeah. Also, Scotty Sheffler should have 2.98, but has more than that. So
Stones. Scotty Stones.
Okay, so I'm pivoting to Burns here.
Perfect. Love it.
Should I?
Yeah.
I mean, I had Max Homa Homa's got his own major issues he's got to work through, but for me, Sam Burns does everything. Feels ready to win a major, and it feels more like a matter of when, not if. And I'm not really saying that he's going to win this week, but he's got the game for it. 85th percentile driving distance, 90th percentile adjusted approach play, 83rd percentile adjusted wedge play. He's actually a really, really good putter. 83rd percentile in expected putting. There's nothing he doesn't do. Not a whole lot of major history. That's the biggest knock. But the salary of 10.4, I think, will probably cause him to be a little bit overlooked because we have some other names there. And I think that
Rose is
not
in.
Gonna be chalky. So
Rose is in on Sam Burns. I heard the bark. So she's in on Sam Burns. I am as well. I like Burns. I like this range, which is why Joaquin Niemann is my top mid-salary guy. Niemann is 10-2. And I think that's where the drop-off is. And I'm always a fan of getting the lowest salary guy in a tier. And to me, Niemann he's not on Burns' level. I definitely prefer Burns, but he's at least in the same tier-ish as him is what I would say. Niemann ranks 36th in distance gained the past 50 rounds. He is 17th around the green, 50th in bentgrass putting. So forget everything we knew about old Joaquin Niemann like 3-4 years ago. It's just a different guy right now. The difference is he's lagging in approach, but Niemann has still shown upside there in 2022. He won the Genesis based on good approach play, finished 6th at the Farmers. So I think Niemann is very worthy at 10-2, and I think the drop-off occurs after him. You mentioned potentially not being in the 9,000 range that much. I'm fully on board with that approach and would like to approach things that way just because I think there's a big drop-off here, and upper 9,000 range, it's a very good range because it's a major, but if I were to deem like a quote-unquote weak range, again, accounting for the fact that it's a major, I think that's probably the one I would point to first.
Yeah, and speaking of just where I am with Niemann, I built a lineup with no golfers in the 9,000 range for my first 5, so overlooking that entire 9,000 range. I have 10-5 left, which could get me Daniel Berger, Matt Fitzpatrick, or Niemann, or Tiger, Hatton, whatever. It's going to be Niemann, and I'll just eat the 300, I think. I like Daniel Berger as a win bet, but I would rather just bet him at longer odds.
And to clarify, that's because you had Sam Burns already in that lineup, because he would be in that range as well. I wanted to note that.
Thank you.
I got it, but yeah. Okay. Who else do you like in the mid-range?
I'm going down to Taylor Gooch, but I think you have him as well, right?
I didn't realize that you had him as a player pick when I was talking about him before, but I'm very excited about this. So let's talk about Taylor Gooch.
Just a good all-around game. 93rd percentile in adjusted strokes fairway through green. He's not short off the tee. I have him 66th percentile, but again, a plus in if you look at it from a Z-score perspective. Pretty average putting. Got a pretty good spike week number in tee to green play. Made 4 or 5 cuts in majors, T14 at the Masters. Not a name that's going to catch a lot of buzz because it's a major and just Taylor Gooch, but he's a heat check favorite for a reason.
Yeah, and I think that was it him last week. I said it was like a mini Spieth or like Spieth light. I can't remember. Anyway, he does a lot of things that Spieth does or typically does well, but like is very low salaried. And obviously Spieth finished like second or whatever last week and Gooch missed the cut. So that comparison did not work.
You said light.
Nelson.
Light.
Yeah, Spieth light, very light. But I think with Gooch, like you said, his issues off the tee mostly come from accuracy. He's actually okay from a distance perspective. And if fairways are wider this week and potentially less penal, I think that's a great thing for Taylor Gooch because 26th in the approach, past 50 rounds, 4th around the green, above average bent grass putter. Like you said, 14th at the Masters. That was good putting, but I like the ability to get good putting. And it shows he can hang in a tough field when conditions are good enough here. And I think that I'm in on him enough to be okay with him at 95. If you were to list other guys in the low 9,000 range you like, I think Keegan's in that consideration for me. Maybe Adam Scott. Who else would you look at down there?
Low 9,000 specifically?
Yeah.
Going from the bottom up, Billy Herschel is fine. He's going to have some distance issues, but he plays better at tougher events, and he's been very vocal about preferring setups like this. I don't think there's anyone else.
Okay. So basically what the takeaway is, we don't like this tier. Avoid it if you can. Correct?
So I could see the case for Jason Day if he finishes the event. I'm not there with Webb. Scott, I guess. I'm always in on Adam Scott to some degree, but Patrick Reed, I guess Keegan would be third. So I would go Gooch, Herschel, Keegan.
Okay.
I guess. I'm out on Kokrak and Sergio, though.
I think the reason I was in on Scott is because we just watched Severance, which includes Ben Wyatt or whatever his name is, the Parks and Rec guy, other Adam Scott, Bizarro World Adam Scott. I know that's not the other Adam Scott for most people, but he is for us here on the Heat Check. Maybe Severance has gotten me to like Adam Scott for the PGA Championship. Who can say? Value range. Who are you turning to there?
I'll give you the lead on Cameron Young because I took the lead on Taylor Gooch and we overlapped there.
Yeah, so I think that we're talking a lot about avoiding guys who will be chalky. You just don't see that happen with value plays very often. They're not chalky to the extent where you have to avoid them. That happens more so with the studs because people filling out lineups on their phone while they're in line at the grocery store, which I've done, they're probably not going to Cameron Young. And I think that's going to suppress his roster rates, and that's a good thing. He can launch it off the tee. He's had good approach play recently. He's had some spike weeks with approach recently. He's never made the cut in a major in 3 tries, but it seems like he's on a new level right now. And his most recent attempt was his Augusta debut. So I will happily be high on him at 82. Any final thoughts for you on Cameron Young?
No, I think we covered. He's the value play of the week.
Okay. Who else do you like for a value play for this week?
So I'll go Sebastian Munoz at 8,000. He, probably deserves to be a little higher salaried than he is, but could be a little bit of an overreaction to last week, but very balanced golfer, above the median in all 3 adjusted tee to green stats, 72nd percentile in overall adjusted tee to green over the past year with my adjustments factored in. Can go low, but that's not really going to be the goal this week. It's going to be to save par. But when you have a really balanced profile, that helps you get there. And I will once again mention Oliver Becker at 7,000. 37 years old. It's not really when you want to see a turnaround, but rates out really well in Data Golf's True Strokes gain metrics. Mine are pretty similar, so I just will leverage that one here. But Inside the top 100 in the official World Golf rankings, 7 top 11 finishes in 11 DP World Tour starts this year.
One of those was at the Catalunya Championship. He finished second there. And Brandon, that was while I was there. So I feel like we have to use Oliver Becker now because he and I were both in the region of Catalunya at the same time. It's destiny. Oliver Becker, winner of the 2022 PGA Championship because of this. This is not a narrative. It's not a heritive. It's a veritive because I was there. If you've quit, that's okay. I accept your resignation. My second low salary guy is Harold Varner III. He is not super long off the tee, but every other part of his game is great. He's also like Gooch. He's not short. He's just not like super, super long, but he's good elsewhere. He ranks 13th in approach, 19th around the green, 41st in bentgrass putting. Bentgrass, that surface for HV3-2. And we look at him before a good finish at the Zurich. His most recent event was the RBC Heritage. And in that one, we saw HV3 gain 7.6 in approach and finish third. He was also sixth at the Players. I like that a lot for 88. What are your thoughts on Harold Varner III this week?
Don't mind him, but prefer a few other names. Would you accept a Russell Henley versus Harold Varner III head-to-head?
My inclination is to scream yes, but let me check.
And let me pull a Jim here and let you know that I'm laying $100 in salary here.
Yeah,
which should earn me about 30 extra.
He's 20 points shorter in the betting odds. You're not laying anything here. Get out of here. Who invited you? I wish you'd quit. Why didn't you quit after I made the stupid narrative joke? You should have quit. Yeah, I'll take that.
Okay.
I'm also giving you like 0.06 in Data Golf's True Strokes game in the past 6 months. So get out of here with your I'm giving you this.
I'm gonna replay this next time you pull that on me.
Yeah, but like usually I'm giving you betting odds too. You're not giving me betting odds, which matter more than salary. Don't lie. Is that our only bet for this week?
Yeah, so I wanted to squeeze at least one in there. Do you want to throw in some more?
I'm gonna find a Rory thing, but I haven't found it yet. Maybe I should just do. No, I don't. I like JT a lot, so I don't want to do that. And I can't do it versus Scheffler or Rom because that'd be stupid. I got nothing for Rory. What about Rory versus Spieth? Yeah, if you're gonna make a fuss about giving me 100, yeah, okay.
How about, because I want to make this happen, a name we didn't really discuss, Cam Smith. I kind of like him this week, but I can't like everyone. Give me Cam Smith plus.
No. I'm not giving you plus anything. Especially on an event where scoring will be lower because there are.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, like, how about. No, if you won't do Rory versus JT, then just.
Yeah, I don't think we'll go in there. We did get a question over on YouTube from Star-Lord's dad. I don't think that's actually you because he died in the movie. Spoiler alert. Whoa. Anyway, thoughts on Adam Hadwin, $8,100. Hadwin, not a distance guy, but pretty good around the green. Decent putter, not bad in approach. Adam Hadwin in your player pool 81 or no?
So I've seen his name floated around a lot. I have him just outside the top 30 in my stats only model. He's about average in sort of spike-based upside. A pretty solid fairway through green golfer. So if you can give him just, if he hits enough fairways and isn't totally behind in distance, I think that there's a case to be made. I would prefer Hadwin, or I would prefer Munoz to Hadwin and also Cam Young to Hadwin. But if I had to scrounge up more names there, Hadwin might be, top 3, top 4 in that low 8,000 range. So, again, nothing against Hadwin so much as can't name everyone. But yeah, it's a good call out.
Okay, so we are okay with Adam Hadwin at 81 after you get to those other guys down there. But again, also behind Oliver Becker, who is guaranteed to win as a result of the veritive narrative for this week. Win picks outside of Oliver Becker. We'll exclude him because it's too easy. Who are you picking to win this week based on their current odds at FanDuel Sportsbook?
JT at 16-1.
Okay.
And it's between Cantlay and Lowry.
Okay.
or Xander, but they all shortened, which I don't love. But I'll go Cantlay at 19. I'm not. This isn't a long shot week for outrights for me, so I'm keeping
Cantlay's 21 now, by the way. He lengthened too.
Okay, I'll take that.
Okay, so I was like going into this like feeling great about Hideki and Sam Burns, but they both lengthened, which like you should be like, oh hey Jim, that's great, you're getting better odds, but it also means that people are not betting them, and that makes me feel they're very uncomfy. So I'm still gonna do it, but like there's always that mental block of like, uh-oh, seems bad. Although I think they lengthened a lot of people, if I'm being honest right now. Like Rory lengthened. Yeah, Cantlay lengthened.
Well, Cantlay shortened, and then he was 20. I mean, he technically shortened from
Hideki. Hideki's 32-1. He's going to win. Burns will also win. He's 48-1. So I'll take those two guys. So it's a little bit longer shots, but like guys with like realistic paths to win. I think that's the bigger way to view things. Correct? Like we're not like they're kind of long shots, but they're like.
Are you asking me how betting works?
They're not dart throws. Right?
No, they're not. But yeah. I think Burns is about like Burns.
He's
Homa,
as far down as I would go personally.
I would go to are these guys still 50 now? With no, Homa's 55, Berger's 55 again. That's about honestly where I would consider capping it for outrights.
I agree.
Because boy, this is a
don't bet top fives and top tens because the hold on them is hideous. But that's
not necessarily true if you run the numbers on some guys. You'll find some value every now and then.
I ran NASCAR numbers last week, and there was value on one guy in a 36 driver field.
I'm not NASCAR.
I'm mad.
Every week we go over this. Every week we go over this.
Why am I paying a higher tax to bet NASCAR? Very mad. This is injustice. Okay, so you're with. I didn't listen to your win picks. Cantlay and who?
JT.
Cantlay and JT.
Two notorious closers.
Well, we get Hideki used to have that similar.
Yeah, you have it till you win. Scotty Sheffler had it till he won 4 times in 6 starts.
Yeah, Sam Burns has already won twice in the past, like, I don't know, number of starts. So Sam Burns, guaranteed winner, along with Hideki. They will share the trophy, and it'll be great, and I get credit for both them. No dead heat rules. I just get the bet for both. That is all that we have here for this week. But Brandon, any final thoughts for you on this PGA Championship before the good people go off to fill out their fantastic lineups?
Just the obligatory major closing thought where you're going to be able to pivot from the chalk if you choose to do so, because there's not a whole lot that separates these golfers. We went through this whole show, barely talk. I just threw out Cam Smith's name. You probably mentioned his betting odds, but like Cam Smith was all the rage not that long ago. DJ, Hovland, if you're there, like you're going to find guys who are overlooked. And if you want to play that way, this is the best week to do that kind of stuff. So that's always how I like to close this one out.
And also consider the narratives, the heretives, and the veritives before you finish filling things out. But also, like Brandon said, be willing to pivot if you can find a way to be different without being dumb. I think that's always my key thoughts for a major. That is all that we have here for this week on the PGA Championship. But if you are a new listener, we do this every single week, breaking down the PGA Tour event. It's not typically an hour and a half, so it's not always long. I promise you of that. Getting you in and out quickly to get you our thoughts on that week's PGA Tour field if you want that, plus MLB, UFC, and NASCAR podcasts. Subscribe to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. And we also are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. I had to list those just in case. Whatever. Anyway, you can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Brandon, where are you on Twitter?
I'm not, but sometimes Gadula13, GDULA13.
In theory, you're on Twitter at Gadula13. I am actually on Twitter, chronically on Twitter, at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. Want to thank you all for tuning in. Good luck to you with your lineups for the PGA Championship. Enjoy the golf. We'll talk to you once again next week. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire.